Welcome back to the County Agent Podcast. This week, we have Mike Klumpp, who we just wrapped up an ATV safety class here in Cimarron, Kansas, and Mike was gracious enough to come up and instruct us through all that. Mike, how's everything going?
It's going great. Had a great time here, and my background, I grew up in north central Oklahoma on a wheat and cattle farm, and we've been using ATVs since back in 1971. Back in 71, I was a freshman at Oklahoma State University at the time, and my dad bought an ATV. It's called a Honda ATC 90, little 90cc ATV, and back in 71, the only ATV you could buy in the U.S. was that Honda ATC 90. As years went on, you started seeing more manufacturers come into play and building three-wheeled ATVs, because it was definitely a three-wheeler. But we started using that on the farms. We still used horses, started using the ATV to go out and check cows and things like that. When he bought that ATV, he bought a helmet to go with it. Mr. Mike here's never operated an ATV, a dirt bike, or a street motorcycle without a helmet on my head. And that's what we're here to emphasize too today, is talk about the safety around this and things that are happening, not only here in Kansas, but Oklahoma, in the South, nationwide, around the world actually too, as far as keeping both youth and adults safe on ATVs.
So did your dad, did he buy the helmet, or did the helmet come with the ATV?
We bought the helmet to go with the ATV. And so I've been wearing one ever since then. Of course, I graduated from Oklahoma State with my degrees and stuff over in the College of Ag. And then I went to work as a county extension agent in Kingfisher County, just northwest of Oklahoma City. And was there about 4.5 years. But during that time period, major responsibility in extension 4-H youth development was working with youth in the county, and from both the traditional, we could consider traditional 4-H programs, livestock, things like that. But we did a lot of non-traditional things too in the county. I know we actually had a water ski club program, water skiing program for kids and adults, taught families how to water ski and stuff. And then I had a club up in Hennessy of young men that had ATVs, and we started kind of a 4-H ATV safety club. Young man, Noel Jones was his name. And we in the summertime would go around to different 4-H camps and take those ATVs. Of course, they were three-wheelers back then, and talk to youth groups and stuff at summer 4-H camps, other camps, promote the importance of wearing the proper safety gear while they were operating their three-wheelers, doing that. So we did that a lot. And then I left that county and went over to Stillwater to Payne County. Of course, that's where the land-grant university is, Oklahoma State, and still stayed involved with ATV safety, doing some things like that, and kind of got that direction doing stuff.
And we learned the other evening that when you was in Payne County, I believe, one of our extension agents up here was on one of your livestock judging teams.
Yes, Cherry, and it's Cherry Duffel back then. And I can't remember her name her married name now, but she was.
I think it's Cherry Nelson.
Cherry Nelson, that's right. Yeah. And she, one of our outstanding 4-H club members there in Payne County. She was from Perkins, and her and her brother Danny were both on my livestock judging teams, along with other couple of kids from Perkins, and actually won the state livestock judging contest and won the trip to Louisville, Kentucky, representing Oklahoma that last year before I left Oklahoma, and then went to the University of Arkansas on the faculty there. And I ended up spending in my career 2 different trips back and forth. I spent 12 years working for Oklahoma State University as an extension agent, and then about 2.5 years on the state faculty there at OSU, and then spent 22 years at the University of Arkansas. Main responsibility, I was the program director for the Arkansas Youth Adult Conference Center. It is the CA Vines Arkansas 4-H Center, called the Vines Center now, and major conference facility that Arkansas is fortunate to have. And we had major facilities, 3 hotels, 250 acres right in the edge of the Ouachita Mountains, about probably 12 miles from downtown Little Rock. But when you head out to the center, you're out there in the mountains and the beautiful countryside of western Arkansas. Of course, everything from Little Rock to the east, basically that's that good old Delta farmland, and of course, Arkansas is known for #1 in rice production worldwide. Of course, soybean production, cotton production, things like that too. And we started an ATV safety program back in the 80s there, and we're running ATV safety camps. We had a grant. National 4-H Council had a grant from the Honda Corporation, $1 million grant that kind of got that started back in the 80s. And so we're doing a lot of trainings. I was involved on a design team for about 3 years, working with Honda, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, of course, USDA Extension, the land-grant universities, and National 4-H Council got involved in. And I've always had a passion for being safe around ATVs or farm safety, things like that too. I know as an agent, the entire time I was an agent for almost 10 years, I had my week-long summer farm safety camp for kids, and it was for 14 and 15-year-olds basically, so they could get their certification to work for farmers on those farms and ranches there in Oklahoma too.
So was there a moment or an instant that brought that passion out, or where did the passion come from for ATV safety?
You know, I've always been involved in things, and I used to competitively water ski and stuff too. I was always wearing my helmet there. Used to skateboard, of course, ride a mountain bike, things like that. Just the importance of being safe around that and just doing safety things. I got highly involved with adventure education too, and I know we had a really strong program in Arkansas where every year we'd take anywhere from 60 to 80 young people backpacking in New Mexico for 10 days. And of course, all the aspects around being safe in the backcountry, teaching those kind of skills too. And we required all of our adults to go through the National Outdoor Leadership School 10-day WFR training, Wilderness First Responder training, to go with those crews. We'd have 8 to 10 kids, 2 adults per crew doing that. Of course, all the safety aspects of, being safe in the outdoors. And of course, my major concern there in the outdoors, just like it is in Kansas, Oklahoma, or whether you're in New Mexico or in the mountains of Colorado, is my biggest fear is always lightning. And that's my biggest fear. I mean, we can deal with everything else, but lightning, that's one thing you got to watch out for. And I know we see a lot of things happen, just around farmsteads and stuff too, making sure we get in and out of the weather and stay away from that.
So we've talked obviously over the last few days, and I'll just say it pretty bluntly. Where I'm from, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody wear a helmet on an ATV. And so as we talked earlier this week, I had to break some bad habits. Can you talk about the importance and feel free to give examples of why we need to be wearing a helmet every single time we're on an ATV?
Glad to talk about that. Of course, like I say, I've always wore one. And of course, I've encouraged all the young people I work with and the families and adults to always wear a helmet too. I know when our daughter started riding, her mom and I made the decision at age 10, she was going to learn how to ride an ATV. Of course, we were living in Arkansas. At that time, we didn't have an ATV personally in Arkansas, but we had friends and neighbors that had ATVs and side-by-sides. We had in the program that I oversaw there at the university, we had about 40 ATVs of different sizes. Young people and adults could come to our conference center. We had 2 actually training sites there at that facility where they could go through the full hands-on ATV Safety Institute RiderCourse program, learn how to properly ride an ATV, get certified. And so she got involved at a young age that way and with helmets. Helmets number one. And we look across the country and the number of deaths we have each year, number of serious injuries. I know all sites of examples here. Oklahoma, since I retired back in 2010, Oklahoma's been in the top 10 in total deaths involving both ATVs and side-by-sides. And we had similar numbers there in Arkansas too. And back in 2010, I got a phone call from the hospitals in Oklahoma asking if I would help them start a program like we had in Arkansas. And I said I'd be more than happy to do that. And by the way, I'm getting to retire and move back to Oklahoma and move back to Evan, which is right there in that Oklahoma City metropolitan area. So I sat down with the Bethany Children's Health Center Hospital, the staff there, and then we got some other hospitals involved, other agencies involved, and within about 3 weeks, that first couple of weeks in January of 11, we formed ATV Ride Safe Oklahoma to address that need to keep young people and families safe on ATVs. You look at most people don't wear helmets out there, and our goal is to just get that message out across the state of Oklahoma and also nationwide to make sure we're wearing a helmet. If you're out there operating an ATV involved in a crash, have a head injury, statistics say that you're more than twice to die in the hospital if you're involved in a crash with a head injury. So we're trying to change that, make people understand that. You can buy a good quality Department of Transportation compliant helmet, open face helmet, for around $60 to $65. You can get yourself a full face helmet, which has a little bit more protection for lower mouth and jaw. But the most important part of a helmet's that part that kind of takes care of that top of that head where that old brain's located. And that's what you want to protect. And you need to look for a good quality DOT compliant helmet. And helmets are made out of different materials. You can have helmets made out of a really hard outer shell of hard plastic. It could be fiberglass, could be carbon fiber. And yes, a carbon fiber helmet costs more than a helmet made out of a hard outer shell of plastic. Doesn't mean it's any better. It's just more lighter weight. Those new materials they have, helmets have underneath that hard shell about a 1-inch layer of polystyrene or styrofoam. And then the next layer would be the foam padding, which makes it fit and conform and sizes it to your head. Then you have your retention strap with the buckle system. That's got to all be fastened properly. And so if you're riding along and do take a spill and your head comes into contact with an object, the ground, rock, tree, whatever, that impact happens. When that happens, that styrofoam underneath that hard shell starts to compress, absorb that energy and spread it across the entire helmet instead of just one location on your head, because your noggin like mine's not very thick. And, we got to make sure we take care of that. And yes, you can still get a concussion with the helmet on, but you're reducing the risk, you're reducing the severity of that concussion by having that helmet on. And you look at all the school sports, you look at from grade school through high school, college, especially football, baseball, softball, they're wearing a helmet for a reason. And we have all the protocols there too. And there's more energy at 10 miles an hour in an ATV crash, dirt bike crash, than there's out there on the football field. We've got to wear that. We've got to wear that proper gear. And to me, helmets are cool. A lot of times they don't think they're cool, but man, I'm going to be wearing a helmet. I'm going to be around tomorrow, the next day, and as long as I can be. And that's what we encourage our families to. And that's one of our key things at our hospital too, the Bethany Children's Health Center Hospital. We want families to have good long lives and stuff too, and be around for a long time. So helmet, number one piece of gear.
Well, I know when I started preparing for the class, going through, the questionnaire, reading the instructor guide, it was, I hate to admit, it's the first time that I'd ever read the definition of an ATV, and that they are meant to be ridden straddled.
Straddled, that's correct.
And, Mike, once again, I hate to admit it. We've talked about this. You're down in my part of the country, people gathering cattle, working around the ranch or the farm. Usually they ride with their butt in the seat and two legs on one side, or a knee in the seat where they can jump off, grab a gate, push a calf or whatever. But every year I know of at least one person, for as far back as I can remember right now, somebody's had an accident. We just had a guy, gathering cattle not that long ago that had a pretty bad spill, and fortunate that he only broke his collarbone.
Yeah.
And had to have surgery. But it just seems like every year, and it's just those very simple things that these things were designed to be ridden a specific way.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And I wonder sometimes, have you seen a change for the better, or are those old habits just too hard to break when you're talking about ranch hands, farm hands that's done this for years that way?
Well, a lot of good old stubborn cowboys out there and stuff too, and things like that. But you look at let's look at the rodeo sports. Yeah. I mean, I know of national champion riders that didn't used to wear helmets. They're wearing their helmets now in the bull ring. I'm even seeing bareback riders wearing helmets now too. And things have changed a lot too. We talk about ATVs, and this is one thing people don't realize. Of course, an ATV, all-terrain vehicle, known as a four-wheeler or a quad. It's a motorized vehicle that travels on 4 or more off-road, low-pressure tires. Those tires need to be checked every day. And we're talking somewhere between 3 pounds and 7 pounds, depending on the size of the ATV.
And I just discovered this week, it's usually on a sticker right on the four-wheeler.
It's on the four-wheeler. Should be found on, usually it's on one of the fenders of the four-wheeler or someplace on there too. And you've got to check that tire pressure because you want your front tires to be the same amount. So let's say the 450 that I ride, the Can-Am 450, front tires, back tires, all four tires are 7 pounds of air pressure. I have a new 300 Kawasaki. It's 5 pounds in those tires. And so if I have 3 pounds over here and 7 pounds here, it's going to definitely pull to the left. It's going to make it hard to steer and operate. Now, if I put too much air pressure, and I know I've had people show up for a training, they bring their own ATVs to use, and we put that old low pressure tire gauge on it, it pops up to 40 pounds. Well, that's going to be a real bouncy ATV they're going to lose control of. So they've got to definitely check that. And people don't realize too that all-terrain vehicles, four-wheelers, are primarily designed for one person only. They're not made to carry passengers. When you put a passenger on the back of an ATV, it changes how it handles. Of course, ATVs, again, have that long seat. We call it a saddle to be straddled by the operator, and then handlebars for steering control. But those back tires on those ATVs, that's a solid axle. They're giving it the power. Both those tires are spinning at the same time. So if you're going down a trail, you've got too much weight on the back, you got to turn to the left. If there's not enough weight up front, those tires may not turn that ATV, and you may keep on going straight ahead and hit what you're trying to avoid. And we see a lot of crashes happening that way too. So again, you've got to watch that. Now they do make a true two-person ATV, has a longer wheelbase, has a seat designed for a passenger that sits up higher. It's behind the operator, has its own set of handholds, has a backrest, also has a place in the fenders, and also they have their own footrest for just the passenger. And even on those machines, the manufacturers recommend that the passenger be 12 years of age or older. Now, I've seen younger kids that are fairly good size riding as a passenger onto an ATV. But again, you've got to follow those age guidelines. And as you know now, as being a certified instructor, after being here for 4 days, every ATV has a warning label on it that says what age should be on that machine. And so as an instructor, when I go to teach, I've got to make sure that child is on the right size age for the size of that machine. If it's a 90 or a 110, that's usually going to be 10 years of age or older. For younger kids under 10, that's going to be a 50 or a 70 cc machine. And so I have to follow the guidelines on the machine, but also too, they may be the right age, but may not be the right size. They've got to fit that machine. So when they're sitting on that ATV and they go to stand up with their hands on the handlebars between their backside and that seat, they should have at least 3 to 6 inches of clearance. So as they're going down a trail, hit a dip and a bump, they don't get bounced off the machine. If I don't stand up going through a pretty good dip or a bump to absorb that shock, even though I've got shock absorbers on new ATVs, I can get bounced off that machine too. So you've got to fit that machine. Also, small kids on big machines, they go to turn that machine, their arms, they don't have that bend to their elbows to be able to turn that machine. And can they reach the throttle with their hand on the grip on the handlebar? A lot of small kids have to pull their hand off that grip, then they push that thumb throttle too hard. It lunges forward, they fall off backwards and get hurt. And then two, small hands, big machines, they can't stop the machine. They can't reach the brake lever to stop it. And they lose control that way too. And again, like I said, mainly all machines are designed for one person. Put a passenger on there, you're putting yourself at risk as the operator, you're putting that other person at risk too, especially small kids. Small kids should not be riding as passengers. It's not a toy to go out and play on and stuff. It's a work machine, and it's designed for work, designed for recreation and fun too. But you've got to watch those guidelines too.
Yeah, I know obviously now the importance of having the appropriate sized individual to that machine. Because, we talked all week. There was never a moment during this course that we talked about applying one brake only.
Yeah.
It was all brakes, same time. And if your foot can't reach the foot brake, if your hands can't reach the front and the rear brake on the handlebars, you're in a lot of trouble.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we forget these are machines, and they can take off at a moment's notice. And, it's the little things of some of the examples that you brought up during the week that, I think about rodeo and of how protective, you mentioned it earlier, we've gotten in rodeo.
Yes.
Starting at the youth level. It's a mandatory in a lot of events. They have to have a protective headgear. And then fitting a kid, like when my girls were starting to rodeo, we put them on the appropriate horse that fit them. Yeah. We didn't put them on something that they could go win the national finals rodeo on.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the same thing with these ATVs. And for some reason through the years, guys like me just kind of space that off and treat it as, it can be a babysitter, and it's not designed to be a babysitter.
Yeah.
Um,
I know our daughter too, when we moved back to Oklahoma, she was going to the 6th grade. She started showing quarter horses, and when she was out there on her quarter horse, she did a lot of ranch type events too. But if she was doing anything, hunter jumper, things like that, certain events, she had that equestrian helmet on too. Got to wear that proper gear. That sport requires a helmet. You need to have that helmet on your head. And two, we talk about that, and we've been talking about ATVs, 4-wheelers, and quads. One of the biggest things we're seeing nationwide now is just a lot of side-by-sides, which is that machine that has the steering wheel, has 4 tires, could be bench seats or bucket seats. It's got the foot pedals like your car pickup truck has. It's got safety feature-wise. They have seat belts. Use the shoulder harness seat belt for all the occupants. And then also for the passengers, directly in front of those passengers is a thing called a grab bar. And so when a person's riding along in one of those side-by-sides, the passenger should be able to reach the grab bar with both hands and have both feet on the floorboard, back against the seat, be seat belted in and grab that grab bar. If they can't do that, they're too small to be in a side-by-side. You look at some of these bigger machines made by different manufacturers that are used for utility work, like we have at our farm. You put a 8-year-old, 9-year-old in the seat, their feet aren't touching the floorboard. They may be seat belted in, but when they go to reach that grab bar, they're leaning forward, putting slack in that shoulder harness seat belt. If it rolls, we still have kids getting ejected out of those, even with the seat belt on. Of course, the driver has their hands on the steering wheel. And we've had, this past year, we had several deaths in Oklahoma and side-by-side youth deaths, and small kids on highways driving side-by-sides. And the state of Oklahoma did pass a law in 2021 that now allows owners to be able to tag and license their machine for use on public roads and highways. And we were really concerned about that. I say we, the trauma doctors, trauma nurses, the engineers that build ATVs and side-by-sides, all say that they're a machine designed really for off-road. That's an off-road suspension. Yes, you can put a street tire on there that does just make it handle a little differently on concrete or asphalt. But really, that's an off-highway vehicle with no airbags, no crush zones like a car or pickup truck has. And we've just had a large increase nationwide in side-by-side injuries and deaths. And we're talking big increases. And there's about 30-some states that have a similar law that we have. But we don't have any signage on our county roads in Oklahoma either that says, be aware. There could be an ATV, or like up north, snowmobiles, side-by-sides. They've been doing that for several years up north. So I just think we've got to make parents realize that side-by-side, it says on the dash, the manufacturer, the engineers, they say to operate a side-by-side, you should be 16 years of age and have a valid driver's license. Now, that's the state law in Oklahoma too. But since they've passed in these laws, we've gone prior to this, about 10% of our crashes in side-by-sides were on public roads and highways. Past couple of years, that's jumped up to 75% of our crashes and deaths. Big increase. And that's something that we need to all address. And side-by-sides, again, solid axle back there too. They just handle differently. They're made for off-road use. They're great machines for work around the farm, utility, construction. The recreational side-by-sides, sports side-by-sides are great. But you've still got to wear that helmet inside that side-by-side. The primary cause of death in a side-by-side crash is going to usually be head trauma because they're not wearing a helmet, or upper body trauma because they're not seat belted in, they get ejected. And so again, we've got to make sure we follow those protocols, wear that gear, and we're talking full gear. We're talking long pants, over the ankle boots, and yes, in a side-by-side. I can cite examples of young people who've gotten seriously injured, lost feet in side-by-side crashes because they were wearing sandals or something like that, or a pair of Crocs. And I'm going to throw this out. I thought about this a while ago as we were talking here, and I'll bring this up. Several years ago, when I was working for the University of Arkansas, we had a 55-year-old granddad put his 5-year-old grandson in his lap on a big ATV, 4-wheeler, to go out to check cows. Gonna go slow, and he was driving slow, went out to check cows. Everything went fine. He pulled up to the gate. That granddad got off the machine, went up, opened the gate up, got back on that machine and drove it through. He got off the machine, went back and closed the gate. As that granddad went to get back on that machine, swing his leg around his grandson, His 5-year-old hit the thumb throttle. Machine lunged, went forward. Grandpa fell backwards, got injured. But about 70 feet away was a semi-truck with a 40-foot grain trailer behind it. Machine goes underneath the grain trailer. Grandchild's face at side of the trailer and died on impact. So again, that family's life changed from then on. I mean, they lost their 5-year-old grandson, child, son, that type of thing too. You think, oh, I'm just going to go slow. It's going to be fine, But it only takes, we had a theme at the Arkansas Children's Hospital with U of A to University of Arkansas Extension. It only takes a moment for something to go wrong. Got to be prepared for those moments and do the thing you shouldn't be doing.
And that happened in a simple case of opening and closing the gate. Not even
something you do every day on the farm.
Exactly. One of the examples that was mentioned during the class on UTVs was never put a car seat for a young child in one of those. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, that's one of our big pushes at the hospital there at Bethany Children's there in Oklahoma too, is not putting car seats in side-by-sides. And our hospital, the Bethany Children's Health Center Hospital, is the hospital that trains all the car seat technicians statewide, all the firefighters that do car seat checks, police officers, volunteers, with all those different hospitals around the state and agencies and stuff that promote that. Car seats are designed to be in cars or pickup trucks, motorized motor vehicles like we drive on the roads and highways. They're not designed. They haven't been tested in side-by-sides. And the car seat manufacturers haven't tested them. The manufacturers of those machines, those power sports machines, not tested them either. So again, we're seeing everything from infants in a side-by-side, just riding and bouncing around on trail, getting shaken baby syndrome. Their necks can't handle that up and down on a side-by-side on a rough trail. Also, too, if that machine rolls over, and we had an incident where a machine rolled over in a stream, in a river, and rivers change overnight. And the recreational areas where people are riding side-by-sides, machine rolled over. By the time they got it uprighted, the 8-month-old in the car seat back there couldn't get out, neither could the 2-year-old, and lost 2 young people that way, too. And again, you just, you've got to think before you act there too. You're doing the right thing. And the industry says, until you can physically fit, like I described a while ago, feet on the floorboard, back against the seat, reach the grab bar, you should not be in that side-by-side. And one thing we didn't mention, that structure goes over you, called a rollover protective structure, a ROP system, like we have in all our farm tractors. And I know we still have a couple of old farm tractors don't have ROP systems at the farm, but all the newer ones we have, and I say newer, I'm talking the 80 models and up, had ROP systems. But that rollover protective structure is designed in a rollover crash to prevent the occupants from being crushed by the machine. Doesn't mean you don't wear a helmet in that side-by-side, because your head's going to come into contact with something, either the ROP system or the ground. And we lost a young lady at the University of Arkansas, and there we had a policy, if you operated ATVs on the job, whether it be at the Rice Research Station where she did work, or other research stations, or where I worked too in youth development and training and stuff, you had to wear a $60 Bell open face helmet. We all wore our helmets. Well, she was driving a side-by-side, a large 6-seater utility side-by-side, had 4 hard doors. She's in the driver's seat, seat belted in, wasn't going that fast, went to turn back down a slope, and it just rolled over and landed on its side. When it did, the left side of her head hit the ground hard, and if she had a concussion, was knocked unconscious. She was taken to Baptist Hospital in Little Rock, Arkansas, and 2 days later, she died from brain bleed, a traumatic brain injury. And if she'd had her $50 helmet on or $60 helmet on, yes, she may have had a concussion, but she wouldn't have had that life-changing concussion that she had in that case, passing away. So again, that's when I made the decision that week that every time in a side-by-side, I'm going to have my helmet on. There was times I didn't wear it in a side-by-side. And then I became a licensed instructor with ROHVA, the Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association. And I'm a certified DriverCourse instructor. And our goal here too in Kansas is to come back hopefully within the next year and do a full side-by-side training, get some educators trained to teach side-by-side safety for the communities around here too. And again, of course, we're back to got to be 16 to have a driver's license to operate those machines. You got to be 16 to go through that training.
Yeah. We talked during our training on ATVs the importance of always having your feet on the footrests. And we also talked about, the importance of rider active on these. Can you expand on that? The importance of, I think it goes from the appropriate size ATV where you can have your feet on the footrest, and why that plays such a role in being rider active.
Well, your feet really control that ATV. So, and that's why you need to wear a good pair of good solid over the ankle boots. Now, on the farm, I'm wearing a good pair of cowboy work boots usually. When I teach a lot, I wear a good pair of high ankle hiking boots. I've got motocross boots. I've had those too before. But you want to have your feet are down there on those footrests. You're using your body English and stuff, and your feet are down there. You definitely don't want to be wearing flip flops and sandals and Crocs, because your feet move around those type of shoes too much. And I always tell kids, I do lots of programs. I see about 26,000 students a year with classroom assemblies in schools and stuff across the state of Oklahoma. That's just some of my peers I have that I have helped me do those programs too in schools. And, even driving a car, down the street, if I have a pair of flip flops on my foot, it comes out of my foot and it gets stuck underneath that foot feed. And all of a sudden I'm accelerating when I don't want to be accelerating. It gets locked up in there. I want to have a good pair of shoes on that my feet are conformed to that shoe, and it's going to be able to operate those foot controls too. So that type of thing, and just fit in that machine so, you can operate it. And so, you don't want to be out there. And of course, the industry's gone to where on those footrests, they've made the little grids there to kind of poke your feet. And I'm a tenderfoot, I guess too. But again, they're trying to make sure people have the right footwear on there. You need to wear boots, because I know of cases where young people have lost their feet. I mean, in a crash, they just weren't wearing the proper footwear. Things happen and go wrong.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would want the listening audience to take away from our conversation today?
Well, ATVs, side-by-sides, they're not toys, not babysitting toys. If you've got young people under age 16 riding ATVs, they need to be supervised. And yeah, I know, growing up on a farm, I was driving a tractor at age 14, things like that, age 13. My dad was usually supervising me. I was trained to drive that tractor. And I know my first time to operate a tractor, back then we didn't have ROHVA systems on our old John Deeres. They put a seatbelt on there just in case I'd fall asleep on the tractor. Now, I'd probably still have a pretty good crash if I went through a fence. You never know, but I was seatbelted in so I couldn't fall out of the seat. But again, I think we've got to watch our kids and young people and supervise them. Again, parents need to control the keys. Lock those keys up. Where I see this happen a lot, especially in urban areas. Kids get home from school, parents aren't there. There's an ATV out there. Friends come over from down the neighborhood and they get on an ATV. All of a sudden, that's when everything goes wrong. Something tragic happens because that key was accessible to that young person. Lock those keys up. Parents and grandparents control the keys of ATVs and side-by-sides. They need to be put away. And strongly encourage, if you're going to put your child on an ATV, go through the Kansas State University 4-H ATV training program that you all offer now. Get them certified, get them trained so they understand that. Have parents understand that too. And I encourage parents to go through the training too, so they know what's going to be happening out there. They need to understand how that ATV operates. And that's the best way to get out there and do those things to keep our communities safe and keep our kids doing what they need to be doing. We want to go on to college or career tech, VOTech, whatever too, and have a good long life.
You bet. Well, Mike, I can't thank you enough for coming up and putting on the class for us. And obviously, we're in Gray County, Cimarron, Kansas. Big thank you to Kurt Worth and the gang that was able to put this together, where there were several of us, 6 of us went through the training this week. And as I shared with you earlier, very eye-opening. I've had to rethink, because of all the bad habits of never being taught just the basic safety precautions of an ATV. And so can't thank you enough for your time and your expertise this week and your patience with us, and wish you the best on down the line.
Well, I'm a big supporter of K-State and always have been. Came this close to coming to K-State University back in 1971. My dad had a really good friends with the family that were really trying to encourage me to come to Kansas State University. And And of course, it was going to be that out of state tuition. And of course, we just didn't quite have that to go to K-State. I'm going to Oklahoma State, but I know that my time at Oklahoma State, and then of course my 22 years at University of Arkansas, I've worked closely with Kansas State University for many years. We were doing some joint programs together that I oversaw at the University of Arkansas with Kansas State University. And I wore my Willie Wildcat hat. If we're not competing that day, I'll have that hat on and stuff too. And I just believe in what we're doing in extension and the 4-H program. And, we teach the right things in 4-H. I know my daughter wouldn't be where she was or is in her current career as an engineer, and because of 4-H and public speaking and her ability to get in front of people, talk. And I know when she gave her first talk actually was in Pulaski County there in Little Rock, that county. Her first talk was on ATV safety. And I remember sitting there and there were about 20 people in the audience, and there's about 14 kids in her class for that speech. And they called her name, but when they called her name, there's about 80 people in the room. Well, I saw these tears just rolling down her eyes. I'm going, oh gosh. Well, they let her go out, and we had to go out and calm her down a little bit. She came back in and did really well in that contest. But after that, she had any problem getting in front of people. And I think that's what we offer through the 4-H program in all our land-grant university systems across the country. Teaching young people, both 4-H, FFA students too. Those kids can get out there and make a difference too, and be our future leaders here across the country.
You bet. Well, thank you again, and wish you the best. I know you got some upcoming trainings for yourself, because as you talked earlier, I guess we won't shut it off just yet. There is a possibility of UTV training hopefully soon.
Yes, well, we're hopefully be back here, and they've been trying to get me certified to be a trainer for UTVs for years, and they finally pulled one together, and I'll be spending a few days so I can come back and do that program for y'all here too. I say I do a lot of those for a lot of our corporate groups in Oklahoma, Department of Wildlife, do a lot for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, private oil companies. They have to have their people certified. Scouting program now requires all their adults that operate side-by-sides at their camp facilities around the country. They have to be certified and doing that. And if anybody out here wants to ever become certified like you did, those are offered every month. And I know I go down to Texas to the Honda Training Center, and we do trainings down there. People can drive down, fly in, spend that 4 days and get certified and go back home too. Get training that way.
You bet. And I'll make sure to put the contact information for you in the podcast notes.
Yeah.
That way, if people want to pursue that, it'd be a little easier to find.
Well, I know we've got lots of people across the country that are doing this. Other land-grant universities like K-State too do ATV safety. And we're making a difference out there. We can do so much more. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Mike.